Good morning, and welcome to Conversations with Buddy. We record these podcasts at the Rec Podcast Recording Studio here in Kaiser, Oregon. We drop a new podcast every Friday morning with a new story that will impact someone. We hope that someone is you. Please take a moment to like, comment, and also share on your favorite social media platform. We want to get these messages out to the people and impact the world one testimony at a time. Today, I'm excited to have my friend and guest, Jerry Jones. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, buddy. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you, man. It's awesome.
I've been checking out your podcast and looking at some of the folks you've had on.
Yeah.
And some inspiring stories. And I think so far the one that sticks out in my head, even though you haven't asked me this question, is the young man who really he's been challenged. He had thoughts of murdering someone. Sorry to start on such a somber note.
Love it.
But it's reality.
Yeah.
So, and I don't remember his name, but I do remember his story very clearly. It set me back. I thought, wow, you go through your day to day and it's so, we're so lucky, buddy. We're so lucky that a young man like that who has come back, has a family now, and he's no longer a statistic. Wow. I have huge respect for that.
Yeah.
Much more than anybody on TV. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
The celebrity culture we're in.
Yeah. I think you're referring to Matt Massera.
That's it.
He lived homeless for more than a decade, and it's a very compelling story, man. That's raw. It is interesting. That's what I love about these, because you get to hear the backstory of somebody's life and where they're at today. Like, you see him today, you think he's just a normal dude. What you don't know is life before. So
yeah, incredible story.
Which is what we're going to hear about you today, Jerry. So before we begin, let me just tell who Jerry is real quick. So Jerry, you're a husband. What's your wife's name?
Tracy.
How long have you guys been married?
It'll be 25 years in July, which there's no possible way I've been married a quarter of a century.
Wow.
I just turned 51, so there's no way I've been married almost half my life.
Birthday, December 31st?
That was the date my daughter Maddie got engaged, but my birthday is January 8th.
Wait, your birthday is January 8th?
Yeah, Elvis, baby.
Okay.
By the way, Lisa Marie.
I know, I saw that she passed away.
Yeah. Which is, I always think of Elvis, but,
totally.
Because of the birthday thing.
The birthday thing.
Birthday share.
It's funny, my birthday, August 29th, Michael Jackson, so there you go.
Whoa, and they were married. Lisa Marie and Michael were married.
Wait.
Seriously,
I did not know that.
Yeah, she's been married. She was married like 5 times.
Oh,
rough life that gal's had. I mean,
it's funny. It's funny, you and I have a lot in common.
It is scary. The conversations we've had, it's like, oh, brother.
Because you have 2 daughters.
Yep. You have 2 daughters.
You lived through 2008 a little bit. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit. You like real estate.
Love
Been
it.
married for a long time.
Yep.
It's cool.
It's your wife and my wife have put up with many of the same things. The challenges, of 2 males who wanted to dominate the world. And come to find out, we're just normal humans.
We're just dudes.
Yeah, we're just dudes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so your husband, father to 2 girls.
Yes,
names
they're
are
amazing. Linnea Reese and Maddie Lynn, Madison Lynn.
Is Maddie younger or the older?
Maddie's the oldest.
Okay.
And Linnea is the youngest. Linnea is a junior at Salem Academy.
No kidding.
So we're winding down that time of high school, which is challenging. Yeah,
I'd like to meet your younger daughter too, because when you bring her in the building, that'd be cool.
She is amazing. 2 super smart kids.
Yeah.
She's like a 4.1.
Whoa.
On the weighted scale, I guess is what they call that.
Yeah.
And she'd probably kill me if she heard this. She's number 1 in her class at SA.
Wow.
And so that's super. I mean, she's just super smart.
And she didn't get that from you. She got that from your wife, I'm pretty sure, right?
There's no question.
Is that okay?
Yeah. You know me well enough.
No,
buddy.
I'm joking. Totally joking. But we can have fun with that. You are a business owner. You are an investor, mostly real estate. I don't know what else you invest in.
Yep. Mostly real estate, some stocks. I like dividend stocks, if you were to ask.
Okay. I'm going to ask.
Okay.
You're a mentor. You've mentored me. You've been a coach. Those are kind of similar terms, but coaching, I think, more is you're probably going to do it as a business and make money. Mentoring is that you show up and you don't make money.
Mentoring to me is active. Coaching is not as active. Oh. So To me, coaching is not the same type of verb. I have a degree in lit, and I don't know the difference between, adverbs and I don't remember any of that stuff. I've intentionally blocked it out. But
Totally.
to me, coaching it's a descriptive term versus mentoring, which is an active term to me. So knowing what you guys do here through Valor at the Rec, mentoring, that's the real deal. Coaching is like, hey, if you were to tell me, Jerry, here are my goals, I'd say, well, buddy, what do you want to talk about your goals? And then you'd say, well, how do I achieve these? And I would say, well, how do you think you achieve them, buddy? It's like a psychology. When I was heavily involved in coaching, I was coaching anywhere from 25 to 35 dentists on business. And I did that for several years. The pay was insane. The headache was so great that I did not care about the money. And we're talking significant pay to do this type of work. And I couldn't handle it. It was the numbers were always the same. You'd start with a group of 10. Everybody would show up for the first session, which back then we were doing telephone calls, group calls, and then it went to, then we'd do individual.
And this is early calls. 2000s, is that right?
Yeah, this is like 05, 04, which seems like yesterday, but really isn't. It's a long time ago. And so these guys were paying tens of thousands of dollars a year. And it was phone calls. I didn't even go see these folks. It was telephones. This was before Zoom, nobody knew what Zoom was. The numbers never changed. I guess that's where I was going. 10 would start. And by the end of the fourth month, and these were year-long contracts, at the end of the fourth month, you would be talking to only one of those 10 on a regular basis. The other 9 they had an itch, they scratched it, and that's it. They just didn't care. They didn't show up. And those numbers, buddy, I'd be willing to bet hold true in any business. Out of 10, there's only going to be one high performer. And I think that number is even starting to change a little bit more. So maybe 1 out of 20. So there's a strange pyramid of success that overlays to anything. And it just doesn't change. So
it's like the 80-20 rule. There's probably...
And that's no longer reality. It's
not
actually
reality.
95-5.
It's 95-5.
Yeah. So you take 100 people, five are successful. And out of those 5, one is 500 times more successful than the other 4. It's just, I don't know if that's the actual number, but it's some crazy thing like that.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Did we just go down a rabbit hole?
We did, but that's what we do. This is a conversation. The last little bullet point is you're the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah, and I've kind of had to pass that off now because it's just gotten too much. Traveling back and forth between DFW and PDX is just not what it used to be. Yeah.
But you look different. When I see Jerry Jones on TV, he looks different than you in person. So
you age when you go to Dallas.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's about a 30-year. Well, I don't know. How old am I down there? 75, 77, 78?
Maybe pushing
probably closer
80.
to 80.
Yeah.
So it's my dad's age almost.
All right, it's a joke. So Jerry Jones here in Salem, Oregon is not the same Jerry Jones with the Dallas Cowboys.
Unless I'm down there, and then I am, because the seating I get preference.
I'm Jerry
Seating
Jones.
preferences.
I'm Jerry Jones Jr.
Yes.
I like it. All right, so we'll talk about coaching more, but where did you grow up at? What was life like for you early on?
I grew up in a little town smack dab between Portland and Seattle, right on Interstate 5. Not on Interstate 5, but alongside Interstate 5. Centralia. It used to be called Centerville when that city was first, created, if you will, back in the late 1800s. Small town deal. It would be equivalent to growing up in Dallas, probably. We had a city right next to us called Chehalis, so Centralia, Chehalis, Twin Cities. There were our rivals in sports, and I think at the time I grew up in a typical household. My dad worked, blue collar guy, worked at the coal mine, was kind of worked his way up over the years. Started out as a maintenance tech, basically, going around fixing stuff, and then essentially when he was forced to retire through downsizing, which is a horrible story, which it impacted what I did later in life. Actually, he retired as a mechanic, heavy equipment mechanic, which great pay in those days, great pay, great hours. He went from working shift work, which meant that basically he would work for, I think it was 10 days, day shifts. He would take a day off or 2 days off maybe. I think it was only a day. Might have been 2 days. And then he'd work another 10 days. And I may have these timing wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's the point is his hours kept changing. And so he was I remember when I was a little kid, his hours were so wonky. You didn't know if he was coming or going. Like, is Dad working tonight? Does he go to work at 3 p.m. today or does he go to work at 7 a.m.? Is he coming home at 1 in the morning or is he coming home at 5? You just never knew. And as a kid, you're not really tuned in. But I did that shift work after high school for a little bit, and I can tell you it's hell. Your brain you don't know if you're coming or going. So imagine having 2 kids, being responsible for the household and a wife, and doing shift work and I have his pay stubs from those times actually. The pay was a pittance. I think it was in today's wages, it would be half of what minimum wage is.
Wow.
$6.50 an hour when he started that job in 1977 or 76. Nothing. I mean, maybe it was $5 an hour when he started, but I mean, I have his pay stubs from that time. So I have a lot of respect for that work ethic, what it took to raise a family. So my mom was pretty much what was then considered a housewife. She took care of the boys, my brother and I, because I had one brother. And I mean, it was, we were lucky, very fortunate. My parents didn't drink, they didn't smoke. They were not religious folks. My dad, I tell people this a lot, and if he ever listens to this podcast, he'll probably get a charge out of it. Back in the day when Fletch, before the movie, there was the book Fletch. So if you read the book Fletch, which is a great book, it's better than the movie, of course.
I love the movie too, man.
I do too. There's a line in there where Fletch says, as his character, "I don't believe in a God that requires higher financing." In other words, don't force me to tithe.
Okay.
So that was always my dad's line. He's like, look, I've got my own thing going on in my head. I don't need to be told what to give to and when, and I don't want to be part of that, which I respect that. So anyway, that's just, so they weren't particularly religious. My brother and I went to Sunday school when we were kids.
Okay.
And so, we had friends in the community that were part of the religious, the church thing.
Yeah.
And in a small town, there's not much going on. There's sports and there's religion and there's mischief, right? Plenty of mischief to get in in that town. So anyway, I'm very fortunate. We took a vacation every summer. We would usually go for 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 days, and we would go camping. We would take the boat, and we might go to the San Juans. We might go to Vancouver, BC. Might go to that island, Vancouver Island, and then go somewhere off the coast and literally be out in the middle of nowhere with nobody and just a camp stove, mom, dad, the two boys, and awesome experience.
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, my brother and I still talk about that stuff. So, hunting and fishing and just being kids and, I mean, I've got great stories from that time, but, I think, if every boy could grow up in that kind of environment, and was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect, but there is no such thing. For me, looking back, I thought if I could duplicate that as a dad, as a father, in any way, you look at the things you didn't like, right? And you want to change it. But then you also have things that you do that are stupid that your kids are going to go, I'm not going to be like that,
Guaranteed.
And I've got mine, but looking back, it was the bomb. When I was growing up, it was like, oh, I can't wait to get out of Centralia, Washington, which I did leave shortly after high school. And I finished my project on my truck. I was out the door and off to college. I couldn't wait to leave. But anyway,
Cool.
Growing up was amazing.
Yeah, sounds like a great.
It was a good upbringing.
Yeah, sounds great. A couple things. Is your brother older or younger? And then what sports did you play in high school?
My brother is 3.5 years older.
Okay, so you're the younger guy. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for school purposes, he was always 4 years ahead. Yeah. So I'm a freshman. He had just graduated.
Okay, got it.
Which worked out fine. We were close enough in age where there was some animosity. We were bickering and fighting, and I can remember one time my parents left probably to go out to dinner or something, which they didn't do often. I mean, there just wasn't money, like today, you and I don't even think about going out to dinner. It's like, you want to go out to dinner? Yeah. It's not like, how much do we have in the checkbook?
No.
Literally the checkbook. How much?
I don't know. Oh, you know what a checkbook is.
I don't even know what that means. How much is in the that, we would never I would never ask that question now. But that was legit back then.
Yeah.
So, that just goes to show you how spoiled we are today. Literally spoiled rotten. So, stories. My brother.
So mom and dad would leave, you and your brother would duke it out, maybe?
We would duke it out. I remember one night, we were doing something and I got mad and I went and got a kitchen knife and I was chasing him around the house with the kitchen knife. I was going to kill him.
That's safe.
Very safe. But when I don't remember how old I was probably 10. He was, 14. There's a massive physical difference, size difference, strength. Yeah. So like he could pin me down with one arm and I'm not getting up because he's big like. But
you're not afraid at this point in time. I can tell you're
I was afraid of him, but I wasn't so afraid that I wouldn't defend myself. Let's put it that way. Okay. And when when dad gets home, you're going to get it.
Yeah. That's funny.
So, and I'm going to send him the link to this and he'll laugh. I don't know if he'll remember that or not, but we were.
It's probably funny that what things you remember versus what he remembers.
Yeah, I'd love to tell those. I'd love to see. Just hey, do you remember this time when? Yeah. But today we have a good relationship. We do a lot of stuff together when we have time. He's an outdoors guy.
Does he live locally?
He lived for 25 years. He lived in Juneau, Alaska.
Okay.
And so it was a great excuse to go to Alaska. So I've been to Alaska more times than I can count. And loved it. I love it up there. It's a different world. Yeah. It's a different lifestyle. He moved to Wenatchee, so he's a lot closer now. He's a 6-hour drive instead of a 6-hour day on a plane.
Yeah, yeah.
Or in an airport. So, yeah.
Sports wise, what did you play in high school?
The last year I played really any organized sports, I think, was my freshman year in high school. And I think basketball was pretty much my last sport. I was not a very coachable youth. I knew it all, and I hated coaches. The coaches and I just butted heads. And it kind of, I've got stories. I have vivid stories from age 12. I could tell you state championships, Little League. My team won the league. So our coaches were coaching the team that was going to go to state. Yeah. So they assemble all take the best players from the team. Well, it was my team. We won so you'd think I'd be the catcher. Not a chance. They picked another guy, Tony, which he's dead now, by the way, which is kind of strange. Yeah. Drugs, alcohol, heroin, meth, whatever else he could stick in his arm, or smoke. But anyway, that aside, Tony and I ended up being really good friends in high school. But when I was 12, he was my nemesis.
He was your nemesis.
He took my job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But there was a silver lining to all that, which we don't have to get into today. But I still remember those stories. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's good.
I haven't talked about them in a long time.
Usually, I don't know. I can't remember a lot of stories, but any painful story I remember.
Yes.
And so probably that's what part of your drive is like. When you have to work hard, like my sister was way smarter than me in high school. She'd get straight A's. I'd get C's or D's or whatever. I had to work for those. My sister came easy. So
yeah,
I wouldn't change that because it forced me to work harder and get used to working hard. Sometimes when things come easy for people, they don't actually do well in life because life doesn't deliver easy.
Life is not, it is not designed, nor should it be. Nothing really of any consequence should come easy. Yeah. There's no appreciation for it. And you and I both have learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we definitely
scars.
I've got
mental
wounds,
and physical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I teach my girls, I love pain because it's a great teacher.
Pain's growth.
Success is never, well, I shouldn't say never, is almost always never a good teacher. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you get out of high school. Did you go to college anywhere?
Yes, I went to Pacific University.
Okay.
My goal was to become an optometrist, which is why I chose Pacific.
Okay.
That lasted probably all of 1 year.
Sweet.
First semester, straight D pluses.
Yeah.
Except for I think I had a B plus in Poli-Sci 101. And which that kind of changed the course. I'm like, well, that was easy. This science crap is not, I'm not made up. So, I mean, really that I redeemed myself the second semester because you go on academic probation, and I was getting a ton of scholarships. And back then it was, I don't know, 18 grand, 19 grand a year to go there. So it's probably 60 grand now. I don't even know at Pacific. It's comparable. It's a Willamette. It's kind of like, some of those other private schools.
Private, yeah.
So, Forest Grove, it was a 2.5 hour drive from home, far enough to get away from mom and dad, close enough to go home on the Fridays if I wanted to. So, it worked out great. But, political science it kind of turned out that's where I went. That was the direction I headed. Got through 3 years. My fourth year I spent in Washington, D.C., still paid tuition, but I got credits.
Wow.
And I was an intern the first semester for a U.S. senator. And then I spent the last semester in a different program that I made up for the school so I could get credits, and graduated that, like the next December or whatever.
Wow.
So, I spent almost 2 years in D.C. It was actually 2 full years.
Was that fun for you to live in D.C.?
That was, at the time, a blast. I had to leave because that is not an environment that's conducive to health.
Really? Why?
Physical or mental. I still have backstabbing wounds, number one. And I always tell everybody, whatever you hear about politicians and the people that work for them, it's true. So whatever gossip is on TV, whatever bad things that they're doing back there, it's all true.
It's all true.
It's all true. And here's the thing though, it's sanitized. It's actually worse than what you hear. And stories, buddy. I mean, I could tell stories that your eyes would roll back in your head and you'd be like, what in the world, are you kidding me? Everything from Travelgate, and anybody that remembers that, Clinton-era Travelgate, stories of people that were involved with that turned up dead, to wild rides with a drunk Washington, D.C. police officer through the streets at 3 a.m. in his car as a passenger, not in the back seat.
That's interesting.
Not in the back seat, handcuffed. We ended up in Baltimore, for crying out loud. I mean, just the stories and the stupid things that, and I don't know if, we should talk about these things.
Absolutely. We talk about whatever's conversation.
It's just this is the stories that make up who I am today, I guess. But just the insanity back there. Martini lunches or tequila shot lunches.
Sweet.
Going back to work. I remember on my way to lunch one day, I worked in the Hart Senate building. Had a group of friends back there, most of whom were either from Oregon. Even though I worked for a Washington senator, you kind of hung out with the Northwest delegation, right? Yeah. So all of my friends were, either worked for Oregon senators or Alaska senators. And in particular, Ted Stevens, he was a senator from Alaska who, interesting stories there, all true, most likely. And then there's Packwood and, and then and Mark Hatfield, Mo. Yeah. So at the time, Packwood and Hatfield were, they were the senators for Oregon, and then Slade Gorton was the senator that I worked for from Washington, a Republican. So, and that was back when Oregon had 2 Republican senators, which will probably never happen again in our lifetime.
Probably not.
Just the things that go on, in the U.S. Capitol and the Senate buildings. But anyway, I was leaving lunch one day with this group, and Hart Senate building, I think it would be on the north side of the building, has a long stairs. I mean, just out exterior stairs. And this is marble or limestone or something. I don't know what they are. Anyway, I took one step and rolled my ankle at the top. And I literally did somersaults down the stairs. And there's probably 35, 45, I don't remember how many stairs. There's a number of stairs. This is a long time ago, so I don't remember the number of stairs. I end up at a heap at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm like in pain because, I just rolled my ankle and it sounded like it broke. Fortunately, it didn't. But as I kind of shake my head and I come to and I look up, and here's Bob Dole standing over me. Senator Dole, he goes, "Son, are you okay?" I just looked up at him and I said, "Senator, I think I'm going to make it." What else are you going to say? I mean, here's a World War II war hero. Wow. But it's weird. I have stories about riding in the Senate. They had these little subway cars that would run the senators over to the Capitol, and Teddy Kennedy, and having one-on-one conversations with these folks. And John McCain, I did not like him.
Interesting. Why?
I drove him around one night. He's just a mean guy.
He's pretty rough.
Did not, Anyway, yeah. So it didn't hurt my feelings when he wasn't successful in his presidential bid. But yeah, I mean, it was a weird, wild ride. And 2 years was about enough. I was ready to move
Here, plenty
move back here.
Got it. So what age are you when you get married? How do you, well, first of all, how do you and your wife meet when you get married, and then kids come along at some point in time?
Yeah. I met my wife at a birthday party for, at the time was no longer, I don't know if I'd call her a girlfriend, even just someone I knew. I hung out with this gal that I was hanging out with. Met her at a birthday party, and they worked together. And there's, it's just something, it was like instant.
Yeah.
I was like, I like that gal. She is funny. She's smart. She was witty. And it was just like, light bulbs.
Yeah.
Stars, And I had met her, or actually, I think a couple months prior to that, we were at Jack Scott's house for a big party. Mm-hmm. I was there as a vendor because I'd done some work for First Pacific Corporation. That was Jack's company. And I was there as, a guest or whatever. And it was summertime. It was beautiful out, and this was back when not everybody had a cell phone. But she did, and I needed to call my roommate to let him know where I was going next or whatever. And I asked her, "Hey, can I borrow your phone?" And this is back when phone.
I was gonna say
it was a Motorola flip. Yeah. It was one of the new Motorola flips, right? But it was still like $2 a minute, so you kept the phone calls short. So it's like, "Hey, can I borrow your phone?" And that was the first time I'd met her. I'm like, "Oh, strawberry blonde, gorgeous, tall, just again." I was like, she's pretty. I hope I run into her again. Sure enough, So after that, after I met her, really got to talk with her and, joke with her and stuff, we were inseparable from that point on. Like there wasn't a day that went by where I didn't see her. And it's been that way since. And that was, I think, I don't remember what the dates were even, but we were married in July. July 25th. But this year will be 25 years. I don't remember what day we met specifically, but
that's so cool.
It's been a rocket ship ride with that gal. She's amazing. Yeah. Salem girl, born in Portland, lived in Bend as a kid, and grew up in Salem. Yeah. And just what do you say?
So you guys get married, how long does it take before you guys start having kids?
Oh, we had, Maddie came along pretty quick.
Yeah.
Not long. And that was, again, all of a sudden I'm a dad. That same year that we got married, I got married, bought a business, bought our first house, and had a kid all in 1 year. Okay. And I remember talking to my mom and dad saying, if this is how life is, holy cow, like what? And that's my expectation of life is all this happens at once. And it was just wild. It was amazing. And then 6 years later, my wife and I were chatting and she's like, I think I want to have one more. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah. So, not long thereafter, along comes the youngest. Yeah. So 7 years apart, which has worked out amazing. Yeah. They are like best buddies. They go work out together and so it's cool. It's cool seeing your two girls bond, and what that's like. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it has a lot to do with how you and your wife treat each other, that they respect that, and you have a great family, so that's pretty awesome. And Maddie's got engaged recently, so I don't know if that's public. It's public knowledge. It is, yeah. If it's on Facebook, it's probably public knowledge. Yeah, exactly.
Congrats, Maddie. Well, hey, let's transition to some fun stuff too, as far as investing. You are a commercial broker, mostly in commercial real estate. You don't dabble much in residential.
No, I'm not. I love residential too, but it's not my world. It's a different game. I love commercial real estate. I always have. Yeah. Yep. So
when you think of commercial real estate, you're a broker. What do you love to broker? What would you say to a new investor, or maybe not a new investor, but somebody who has commercial investments? What should they invest in commercially?
Salem is an interesting area. It's obviously capital city. So it's it's different to invest in Salem than Portland, than Seattle, than Roseburg, even Eugene. The city, Portland, Salem, Eugene, all these cities, the three big ones, and Bend, the levels, the value of real estate's always been high in commercial real estates. Mm-hmm. And by high, I mean comparatively. I can go to Houston, Texas, or Dallas, and I can buy a similarly situated building for far less. It's always been that way. The Northwest, real estate has always been it's just been higher. And, yes, you have downturns and, everybody's prices drop at that point, but overall values just seem high. So I think if you're expecting to go into commercial real estate in this part of the country and find a bargain, you might get lucky, but most likely you're not going to get lucky, quote unquote, when you buy. But it's, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest because price is only part of the game.
Right.
It's only, this, buddy. You get numbers. So you're in the mortgage business. So it's all about the numbers. It isn't about what the price you pay. It's about what can you do with the property? What's your exit strategy look like? Why are you buying it? Why are you holding it? Is it an interest only payment? Is it principal and interest? And for how long? And there's all these factors that go into play. So when it comes to price, you're gonna pay probably a little bit more here in the Northwest than you would elsewhere, but that's not the only part of the game. Yeah. I love office, even though the world we live in now is very bearish on office. I'm not. You shouldn't be in Salem bearish on office. There's not a lot of office vacancies. If you have a good quality building and it's an office building, it's probably going to be full. Yeah. In fact, we have one building that has vacancies right now. And even that building won't stay vacant long, even though it's in the downtown core. Predominantly because it's a gorgeous building, great parking. And, there are people that love being downtown in spite of the homeless issues, in spite of, whatever else is happening downtown that might not make somebody like me happy. Yeah. I'm not a downtown occupant. I've had offices in downtown. I used to have an office above Great Harvest Bread, and I loved it. Okay. I loved the chemistry of downtown, and and the smell of bread every day, and But yeah, I think I love office. I love industrial. Industrial is not going away. Industrial is a strong segment. It can be very lucrative. Industrial is hard to find. There's just not a lot in the market. I just sold a property in West Salem. It was a sale leaseback. So the current owner wanted to sell it, but then they wanted to lease it back. Oh, okay. So this allows an owner to basically get equity in the property out. So it's like refinancing. Yep. But not, right?
Totally, yeah.
So great structure for them. They ended up signing a long-term lease for the property with an option to repurchase in the future. So
no kidding, that's cool.
Yeah, so it worked out wonderfully well for them, and it felt good to be able to put that deal together, find the buyer, and do all that work. And I just enjoyed the daylights out of that. Yeah. So I love industrial. Okay. Over the years, I've done a lot of raw land, just bare land investing, and I think that's if you have the holding power, to buy a piece of property and sit on it long term, buying anything along an interstate long term is probably going to be a good play. Yeah. Typically. Yeah. There's always exceptions to everything, but so I love raw land. Yeah. Retail is also a great play. I have clients that are building retail right now, and they're typically not a problem to fill retail. There's always a need for, good retail space. So I think retail is a great investment. Okay. Typically they'll sell it, maybe a little bit higher cap rate depending on who the tenants are. And cap rate, by the way, just for our listeners is, it's a function of the income. It's, it's essentially what one might expect for a return on their investment. So if a cap rate is 8%, and you invest $1 million, you should, potentially expect to get an $80,000 return on an annual basis, 8% of $1 million. Yeah. So
is that like a number you would shoot for? Because if cap rate was maybe 4 or 5%, maybe I don't want to make 4 or 5% of my money. Maybe I'd do something different.
Cap rate's all relative because cap rate tells a story today. It doesn't tell the story 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, right? Yeah. So as leases adjust, that cap rate may very well increase. It may decrease. As a buyer, you want, you typically, and again, these are generalities. As a buyer, you want the higher cap rates. As a seller, you want a lower cap rate, right? So when you sell, you want to sell at a low cap rate to maximize your revenue. to maximize the value of the property. And as a buyer, you want to buy at a higher cap rate. So there's room in the property for, equity and higher earnings potential.
Yeah.
But the numbers tell the story. And until you dig into the underlying leases on an investment property, if you're buying an investment property and it has leases, so there's tenants in place, that's where you're going to find, what the value looks like in year 2, 3, 4, and so on. Because maybe there's a, lease adjustment on a yearly basis, and those leases go up 4 or 5 or maybe 10%.
Yeah.
We had some leases adjust this year because the CPI numbers are so high, inflation, right? Because inflation has been so high, we had some leases go up 11%.
That's just nuts.
Which typically 4 is high. Most leases might adjust at 3.
Yeah.
We try to mark ours at 4 if we're drafting a lease, not drafting because we're not attorneys.
Yeah.
But if we're involved in a lease negotiation for and we're representing the landlord, we like to see a minimum, we like to see 4s, 4%.
Yeah.
Or CPI, whichever is greater. Then they get the upside.
Question for you. So, and I didn't hear you talk about apartments, but cap rates, if a seller is going to sell a property, it doesn't make sense to me that you'd want a lower cap rate because a higher cap rate would say there's more cash flow that it would drive the price up. What am I missing?
So when you sell the cap rate, so the cap rate essentially, like if I sell a building, I'm trying to think of some simple math. If I sell a building, and don't check these numbers, but here's an example. If I sell a building at a 4% cap rate, that means the buyer can expect a 4% return on the purchase price, so to speak, right?
Yep.
So let's say it's $1 million building, 4% cap rate, $40,000, right?
Yep.
So that pushes the sales price higher, right? So
okay,
if you do so, cap rate is basically the net operating income. It's a function of the net operating income and purchase price.
Yeah.
So if you want to, if you have a building for sale, let's say, and you're offering it an 8% cap rate, if you offered it at a lower cap rate, you'd be selling it at a higher price.
That totally makes sense now. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's interesting.
It's the opposite of what you think.
Well,
it would
I'm
be.
in the mortgage industry, but I only work on residential.
Sure.
We look at things completely different than. So speaking commercial language it's still
it's a little different.
It's foreign to me. I mean, I've done a commercial loan, but it's been 15 years ago since I've done that. But
yeah, so it's I mean, in apartments, you're right. I didn't talk about multifamily. There's multifamily is a different deal because you're now dealing with residential tenants versus commercial tenants. The laws are different. What you can do with your commercial property is different than what you can do with a residential. Things you can charge residential tenants versus commercial tenants are different. And there's just a ton of protections for residential occupants versus commercial. Right. Commercial, there's really none. It's caveat emptor, in the commercial world. It's business. It's considered business transactions versus residential and consumer transactions.
So your example would be like during COVID, if I'm a tenant in your apartment complex, I decide not to pay my rent.
There's nothing I can do,
There's
buddy.
nothing you can do. So that all of a sudden, that's interesting. So I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah.
Now, they did put a moratorium. There were some restrictions on commercial tenants as well.
Okay.
But they were nowhere near what they were for residential.
Got it.
But in general, multifamily right now, those buildings are trading at very low cap rates, very high values, in other words.
Got
and the prices are just astronomical. Now, I predicted, because I have a crystal ball that's 100% accurate.
Sweet.
I predicted that multifamily would certainly taper off, the values would taper off, and they'd start dropping, and they are.
Yeah.
Rents are coming down. I mean, this is a national trend, and Oregon is always first to be hit and last to recover. That's just kind of a rule when it comes to the economy. And I think also too, that'll probably take place with rents on multifamily. Yeah. So if, I've got a client that has a project that's going to be coming online pretty soon, multifamily, he's probably going to be hitting the downturn.
Yeah.
Because it's coming. And by the time he's ready to start putting tenants in place and we start leasing that up, he's going to, rents will have dropped some versus continue to increase at some wild 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% in this rent control deal we've got right now. This wonky deal that our legislature passed 2 years ago or whatever it was that caps the rate.
Yeah.
Big mistake. massive mistake, because now you've got landlords who would have never dreamed of raising rent 14%. Are raising it 14% because they can.
Because they can.
The law said they can.
Yeah.
So now it's actually 14.8, I think. But
that's just nuts.
That's a whole nother, So residential is different. Multifamily is different. But certainly a very, very lucrative space to play in. And we love listing them and selling them. Yeah. I'm just not a multifamily owner personally right now. And that may change.
Yeah, I get it though. That totally makes sense. And commercial lending is definitely more lucrative, has less rules, has more common sense,
Yeah.
Either there's profit or there's not.
Yeah, there's no emotion.
There's cash flow and there's no emotion.
Yep.
Buying a home that you're going to live in or a multifamily home is different for sure.
Agreed.
So,
yep.
Dude, this is awesome, man. Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, Jerry.
We can't be almost done.
Oh, we're pretty close. We probably could talk, and you and I have coffee a lot, so we could probably talk for hours on stuff like this because I love investing. What else do you invest in? Because you mentioned,
I'm not a stock picker per se. I love my mind has been changed, and I'm not one of these folks who has all the answers, and I never will. It's life's a learning journey among other things, but over probably the last 2 years, one of my coaches, because I'm a huge believer in having a coach or a mentor. I like, for me at the stage I'm at, a coach is good because this guy is mega successful. He charges $8,000-9,000 a month for coaching. Disclaimer: I don't pay anywhere near that. We trade, if you will.
I love that. That's awesome.
But he is ultra successful. He's a retired physician, lives in Utah part of the year. He has 2 different houses in Florida that are beachfront mansions. He plays golf with the who's who of the CEO business world. Yeah. He's very well connected into Florida, in the Florida businesses.
Okay.
And anyway, he's changed my mind about stocks and investing. And he said to me one day, he goes, "Do you really think you're smarter than," and then he, fill in the blank. Yeah. "Do you think you're smarter than the guy that's running BlackRock? Do you think you're smarter than Warren Buffett and the team that he has put together? Do you think, it's like, okay, I get it. I'm not." And so, this is a guy also that studied the markets. He owned a company. He bought a small financial advisory firm, grew it massively, and then sold it for an ungodly amount of money. This is what he does. He's just, and when I say ungodly, we're in the, multiple tens of millions.
Totally.
And it was just something for him to do, by the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a full-time job.
Right. Side gig.
Side gig, yeah. And why he chooses to talk with me, I still don't understand. But
he likes you for some reason. He lives vicariously through a younger guy. You're probably a younger version of who he was.
Could be. I'd be honored if that were the case.
I bet it probably is.
So at any rate, he kind of took me through this, thought process. And now I don't throw a ton of dough into stocks. I just don't. I've got some favorites. One of them's a local company. Out of Grants Pass. I probably don't need to go too much further than that. And that one I like for a lot of reasons, but it's not a dividend stock.
Okay.
But I like dividend stocks because you're paid to own the stock.
Yeah.
If the stock goes up in value, great. But in the meantime, you're getting profits from the company is distributing their profits in the form of a dividend. And I just have that dividend go back to buying more shares. So, the number of shares I have on an annual basis, if I don't invest more in purchasing more shares, the dividend buys more shares for me. So I like that. And it's kind of no-brainer stuff. And so, I've got some REIT stocks. Again, I'm not a stock picker per se, but there's one called, it's NNN, which is Retail Net Lease Property, I think is the name of the company, but it's, NNN's triple net. That's what that means in real estate lingo.
Triple net.
So it's kind of a play on triple nets.
Yeah.
I like that one. One I'm buying, I have an order in now for Medtronics, which I have a pacemaker. It's a Medtronic pacemaker. It keeps me alive. Keeps my heart ticking.
You better invest in that company.
That company, I did some research. It's massive. I think 54,000 employees. You know, they got a lot on the line, and Medtronic, so they're making devices that keep people. So I like that stock. And I figured, you know, if I can't invest money in something that's in my, you know, keeping me alive, I don't know what I should invest in. Tesla's at it's coming down to a low. It was at 400 some. Now it's like low hundreds.
Yeah.
So I've got an order in for some Tesla stock, and we've got a Tesla store opening up. You know,
that's true.
And I love what Elon's done with Twitter.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the guy.
Yep.
Open the platform up and let people speak.
Yeah.
Get rid of this controlling garbage, you know? And with that, you have to be willing to take the speech you don't like. I don't like what some people say.
Right.
But they've got a right to say it just as much as I've got a right to say what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm a big free speech advocate. Less government is more.
Amen.
For me.
Preach it.
You know? So anyway, that's, you know, stock wise, I like dividend stocks, and you know, he's right. He was right. My mentor is right. Coach, I can't do a better job than what some of those
Warren
big
Buffett's been
doing.
buying Coca-Cola for a billion years, and I don't think he's ever sold anything. He just keeps on.
Just keeps buying.
You
know, there's a valuable lesson right there, buddy. Never sell anything when it comes to assets. Never sell anything that's There's a difference between an asset and a liability, right? I mean, you and I both are acutely aware of that, but you know, don't sell real estate once you buy it. Mm-hmm. Don't sell stock once you buy it. I mean, just hang on to it.
I think if there's a lesson right there, that's the lesson: is the wealthy keep their assets, and somebody who's 70 or 80 years old and they're worth millions of dollars, is they bought something, you know, 40, 50 years ago, and its equity has grown over time.
Yeah.
What platform do you trade on when you buy a stock?
It used to be E-Trade.
Okay.
And I still have something going there, you know. But I like Robinhood just because it's brain dead simple.
You know, okay, so I had money in Robinhood. This is January of 2021, and what was the stock where the Reddit guys were driving? They were trying to the venture capitalists or the hedge fund guys were buying a put because they thought the stock was going to go down. The Reddit guys were buying it. So what was that stock?
I don't remember what it was, but I remember the story.
So the bottom line is this: is I all of a sudden I still have my Robinhood account, but I thought, you know what? I don't like the control because now they're not letting me. All of a sudden they shut off the idea that I could go buy that stock.
Yeah, that's the sad thing is that exists with any platform, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if you look at it from, I don't know what their perspective would be, but anything that you think you have control over, you don't. And the sooner you cede to that idea, the better. and I think that goes with everything in life, right? We have to become masters at reacting to the circumstances we find ourselves. Number one, control everything you can.
Yeah.
In business and your personal life, control it. But if you're out of control or you have no control, you have to become a master at reacting.
Yeah.
Hardest lesson I ever learned from my wife. And this, because I said it to her and it came back to me and it was like, oh God, I should have never said that, but I'm glad I did. And I'm glad she said it back to me. And it was, we were having a disagreement about something. And I said, well, I can't control how you react to it. Only you can. So I'm not owning your reaction.
Oh,
because I had heard some smart aleck person say that, and I thought, well, that makes sense. Well, that hurt her feelings tremendously because that kind of showed I wasn't being a good partner and not understanding. So it came back. That same comment came back at a different time to me. And I was like, okay, I get it. But the reality is this. It taught me that you have to learn to control that reaction and that Buddy cannot be responsible for Jerry's reaction to the high price of eggs, whatever that might be. So, if you do something that I don't like, how I react to it, I have 100% control of. Yeah. I can either go, okay, I see how it is. Yeah. Or I can freak out. I can throw a fit, stomp my feet, whatever. I think the reaction of, okay, what does this really mean? Because another thing, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it first appears.
Interesting, yeah.
Because that will keep you sane. Anytime there's bad news on TV,
not as bad.
It's really not that bad. Anytime there's good news, it's never really that good. Just keep things in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's interesting. Well, it's
words
funny.
To live by.
Words to live by. That's great. It's kind of like I say living by emotion, like in the mortgage industry, at least for me, is there's a flat line where I try to stay really close to, where I just try to stay even kill. And our clients go high when things are going great, and they go really low when things go bad. My job is to stay in the middle and bring it back to the middle. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'm just saying, yeah.
That's
controlling.
That's a commercial transaction right there, buddy.
Yeah.
That's exactly like a commercial transaction. This, if you're representing the buyer and the seller does X, your job is to relay that news to your client, but do so in a way that keeps everything in perspective and keeps them on track.
Yeah.
We always say, focus on the end game, not this play. Focus on the end game. Are we ahead? Are we losing?
Yeah.
Let's keep our eyes on the prize.
Perspective, that's a really big word. And if we could live by that a little bit more, that would be really awesome. So
agreed.
Okay, we're going to wrap up with this last question, Jerry. What is the number one lesson? I mean, I learned a lot of lessons right here, so maybe you don't have one, but is there one lesson that you want to share that we definitely need to get in your life that you've discovered?
Aside from that, those last couple of points, which I think it took a long time to get there, but I think they're really valuable. I think one that is maybe overriding, and if I were sitting here talking to my kids, I would want them to hear it, and it would simply be that never let anybody, and I mean anybody, tell you what your self-worth is. Never let anybody set your goals for you. And never let anybody tell you you can't do anything. I had parents that were always telling me, you can do whatever you want. I remember being a little kid and standing out on our back patio, hot summer day, and talking about a local, this PUD was going to install a dam on the Cowlitz River. And I was passionate that, I didn't want the fish runs interrupted because we love fishing. Mm-hmm. Probably 8-9 years later, when that dam was being built, I was working on it. Talk about crazy. But I guess that simply means to me, my parents were saying, hey, you can do whatever you want. If you want to write a letter to that commission or that committee and tell them your perspective as a 12-year-old, what that means to you, do it. They always encouraged me to follow my dreams, and they always said, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. So you go back to Napoleon Hill, which is probably one of my most favorite success writers. 16 Laws of Success is a book that most people have never heard of, but that he wrote. Most people have heard of Think and Grow Rich, but the better book is actually 16 Laws of Success, or Laws of Success in 16 Lessons. And one of those lessons is that it's, you are in charge of what you can accomplish, and don't let anybody tell you different. If you want to be an author, go write a book, publish it at Amazon. You're now an author. I never thought I could be a best-selling author, which is a topic we didn't get into. I had a best-selling book on Amazon. Who cares? No big deal. But I mean, you don't need permission to become the best or number one at something. You just need to go do it. And you have my permission to be the best at whatever it is you want to take on.
Dude, that's a mic drop right there. And that's one thing I didn't add. You've written 13 books, I think.
I was just curious the other day because I'm working on another one right now. I don't remember what the number is. Yeah. It's not that many. It's probably close to that many, but I just don't know, buddy. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy writing books and just sharing stuff that I learn over time.
Love that. I'm going to end with this note here. It was funny. I was meeting with Tim Davis out here. You just met him this morning. And Sven Anderson. We meet monthly. And we've all read, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Tim says this morning, I've never heard this before in my life, you got to read The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. I'm like, I've never heard of it. He goes, I know.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God. True story. This morning.
I'm getting the tinglies right now.
I've met with Tim for more than probably 15 years. And this morning, of all things, that was the book.
And I bring that up?
And you bring it up. So,
well, I'll tell you, it's a must read because you get a 1920s perspective. Yeah. And it's just as valid today as it was in 1920.
Wow.
So,
well, hey, Jerry, we got to wrap up, man. This has been great. I'll be doing lots of more meetings and coaching because I like hanging out with you and I learn stuff from you.
You're going to be on my radio show, buddy. Saturday mornings, 9:30 a.m. on KYKN. You are going to be on my radio show.
What is the name of your radio show?
It's called 777 Saturdays. And like I said, it's every Saturday morning at 9:30 on 1430 KYKN.
Oh.
And we talk about commercial real estate.
This is going to be fantastic. I can't wait to listen to it because I haven't listened to it yet. I think you've had what? One live
Just
show?
had our first show last Saturday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, but you have 4 people you already did your podcast or your show with.
I've had one special guest. Well, I have one special guest that's on regularly, my daughter, Maddie. And then we've had one other guest, which is my partner, Tom, on the show. So, yeah.
I know them both, so cool. Well, Jerry, thanks again for being here on the show. It's been
pleasure.
Fantastic. If you've out there like this show, we'd love that you would share this with somebody and hopefully impact them with, it could be marriage, could be commercial investing, it could be in just buying dividend stocks. Who knows? But thanks for being a part of our show. Thanks to the Rec for allowing us to be here to do this each week. And if you want to be on our show, we'd love to have you. Reach out to me by just emailing me at buddyp7@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, I suppose. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much. Have a great week.